John, you may begin whenever you're ready.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name's John Mooney. I'm RA Vice President and Director for the North Point District on the RA Board. And welcome to RA's first district listening session of the year. It's something we've been doing annually for several years. And I want to introduce some of the folks who are here from RA so that you know who's here. I'll start with our acting CEO, Larry Butler. And my board colleagues whom I can see, I see Tim Dowling and Bob Petrine, and let's see, and then staff members. The only one I see is our director tonight, our tech director, Sean Barami, who faithfully makes us appear on your computer screens and your TV screens throughout the year. So Sean, thanks for being here again. And have I missed any of my board colleagues or any staff at this point? Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, and I see that we have a number of our colleague or our fellow members here. Welcome tonight. What we're going to do is tonight, as I say, is the first of 5 member listening sessions that we'll be having over the next 4 years. And it's virtual again this year. We had hoped to be live in person, but because of the recent spike in the Delta variant, we felt that it was important to keep staff and our members safe by being virtual. Tonight, we're here primarily to listen to you and to answer any questions you have. We will give a little bit of information, which we'll be getting into shortly, but we're here more to listen and respond rather than to jabber. We're going to hope to get your feedback on a couple of topics that are important to the association and us who serve you on the board of directors. Those are managing Reston's open spaces and then helping the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, known as PRAC, with their work plan initiative to assess all RA amenities, so tennis courts, pools, playgrounds, and so forth. They are studying them to find out which need to be preserved as they are, which need to be expanded or added to, and which may be no longer of great use, so we might want to use them for some other recreational purpose. So this is a careful study period. It's not governed merely by costs. It's governed primarily by what our members need and want in way of amenities and how we can provide it to them in an affordable way. So to kick things off, I'm going to ask our acting CEO, Larry Butler, to take a few minutes to talk about how the community can participate in the conversation about managing Reston's open spaces. Larry?
Thank you, John. Yeah, I just want to touch on some things. It's been a little bit of a crazy year and a half for just about everybody on the planet. And, you know, that touched home here in Reston in no uncertain terms. The pandemic created an extraordinary amount of use on our common area, our parklands, in particular our pathways. I doubt there's anybody on this call that didn't encounter numerous people that they're out walking or jogging on the pathways. And RA owns about 1,350 acres of common area, about 20% of Reston, not including the corridor. So we have facilities and pathways throughout Reston, and you know, we've never seen use like this. And of course, with that came its own challenges with respect to trash. You know, more users is more trash, so we had to up our game on our crews picking up trash and monitoring that. But really, in the end, I think it was really positive to see so many people out using our facilities who may not have ever taken the opportunity to do that, but frankly felt, hey, I got to get out of my house. I got to do something. So let me go, go to this tot lot or this ball field or walk this pathway. So some of the current challenges we're having right now is actually finding staff. It's a very competitive job market, particularly in some of the, I'll just say, the lower paying jobs, for our maintenance staff and so forth. So that's been really difficult. So we're hoping, that changes. A lot of the big corporations are upping their minimum wage and their minimum pay. So we've got to consider that. We're also feeling the impacts of weather events. I mean, we had a pretty massive rainstorm. I guess it was just last week where we actually had a bridge lifted up and moved about 20 yards downstream. It's now been replaced and fixed. But we're seeing that in high winds. And typically when those happen, and they are happening with more frequency, I think most people recognize that, we've got to get a lot of people deployed for picking up trash, debris. Our arborist crews are very busy with high windstorms and things like that. So that's been we're used to that, but it is still a challenge. We continue to monitor the water quality in our lakes, and we do that from an ecological standpoint. I know here in North Reston, you got Lake Newport over by the lake house. So we don't monitor those for swimming, but for ecological health. And we've been very proactive, particularly this past year, in our management of invasive aquatic plants, algae, and the like. And lastly, I just want to mention a couple of really interesting projects that are kicking off. One of these was mentioned at the BOC last night. The U.S. Geological Survey is beginning a long-term stream monitoring program in the Glade and Snakeden branch watersheds, which will really advance the science of urban stream restoration. And they've got 2 monitoring stations set up to look at, the chemistry, water flow, highs and lows, all those kinds of really interesting things. So for the science geeks out there, it's pretty cool. And we'll pretty soon be putting the link to that data on our website. And then the last thing is the College of William and Mary, assisted by George Mason and Virginia Tech, is starting a research project on managing non-native invasive plants in mitigated wetlands and stream restoration areas. And that there was actually some recon going on with our staff for the sites today. And that will be kicking off here fairly soon. So, we're trying to do our part to keep the parks and open spaces welcome for everybody. And I'm certainly happy to answer any questions if you have any.
And speaking of which, we're going to try something tonight. Usually we mute people, and then Sean, our producer, would unmute you. Because we're a very comfortable size group, we're going to leave everyone able to unmute herself or himself, and we'll just use common courtesy instead of Sean's skills to manage our conversation. So with that introduction, anyone want to ask Larry a question? Jane, if you're trying to speak, you're muted. There you go.
Okay. Hi, I'm Jane Brown. I'm a relatively new resident of Reston. My husband Lutz and I moved in 4 years ago this Labor Day from San Francisco and New England. And we chose Reston because of the trees and the nature and the pathways and the tennis courts and the pools. And we really had never seen anything like that before. And we're very active people. And we use all of those facilities, I should say, quite heavily. And we love it. We love it here. And I'm just really so impressed with the association in general. I know that there are people who feel that the association fees are a really good value, and others that are challenged by them. But I'm wondering, like us, for example, we'd be willing to pay more if it would help to mitigate some of the labor shortages and do things like provide for example, I don't know if you guys have read it yet, but I recently submitted a rather long email to the board about lifeguarding and my perspective on the hiring and whatnot and the challenges that I know we're having. Did any of you receive it by any chance? I submitted it last week. It was about it primarily focused on the lack of lifeguards on the shoulder seasons and the challenges that we're going to continue to have if we keep staffing with people who are not available during the shoulder seasons. And I think the only way we're going to get out of that is to pay more. But I'm wondering, I know that there are people who use the association amenities heavily, like my family, and who would be willing to pay more. But I know not everybody is able to do that. And has there been any discussion about maybe doing a sliding scale, or, is there a way, I'm not talking about a usage sliding scale, but maybe ability to pay sliding scale or something so that we could bring more revenue in? Because, go ahead.
If you'd like, I can take that, John.
Sure.
Our governing documents currently don't permit that. It's a flat rate assessment on each residential unit. There are provisions for tax relief, those available for tax relief, and then there's a lower threshold on the assessed value. But that's not that many properties in Reston. So the only way to change that would be a referendum of the membership, which we will have in 2026, which is the year we have to redo the governing documents, or the current documents just continue. So it's more difficult than meets the eye, I'll say.
I understand. Well, I know that revenue is always going to be a huge challenge. I just wish there was some way that we could help with that,
Thank you, Jane. I'll just add a short comment to what Larry said, which is the kind of important basic framework within which we have to deal with this. First of all, I want to recognize that our board colleague, Jennifer Juszczyk, has just arrived. Jennifer, welcome. Thanks for coming. What I would add, Jane, is that like municipal government, where I spent most of my career, there's a balance between having your tax rates, which apply to everybody, although some have graduated progressive tax rates, as you know, but balancing tax revenues with fees. So some services are generally available, so like trash pickup and so forth in a city, and then some are elective. And so we've tried to balance the general services for which we charge the association fee with elective things like people can buy pool and tennis passes and so forth. So that's one way we try to balance it, and it's a balancing act. Pardon me, I have something in my throat tonight. It's a balancing that we do discuss from time to time. And as Larry said, we're going to be doing a referendum so that we are prepared to update our deed in 2026. So that may well be a topic. Thanks.
The only other thing I wanted to add, and then I'm done. I just want to listen, is the biggest thing that struck me as a new member of the community is how few of my neighbors that have lived here for 20, 25 years. I live in a neighborhood that doesn't turn over much, and people have lived there forever. They had no idea that we had trail maps, like I would talk about the pink trail. Oh my God, I love the pink trail. Oh my God. I would talk about the fitness days at the pool. What is a fitness day? There's so many retirees in my neighborhood. They're not even aware that the fitness days exist. And I was like, well, why don't you go? Well, We don't have kids anymore. We don't want to listen to the kids. Well, there's fitness days. I am amazed, even with all of the communication that the association does. And I'm on all your lists. You guys work hard at communication. I am just shocked at how many long-term residents are unaware of the services available to them. And I don't know how to solve that, but it's real.
One of the, yes, go ahead, Tim.
Just very quickly, Jane, you mentioned the email that you sent, and you asked whether it had been read. And I just wanted to say that, yes, we did read it. And I know you've received responses from RA staff and from our president, but I wanted to let you know that the other board members read it as well. It was very thoughtful, very detailed, and very thought-provoking and helpful to our consideration of issues. So thank you for sharing those views.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jane. Yes, Susan.
Yeah, I'm Susan Kosak, and I've lived in Reston since 1988, and I love it. I'm semi-retired, and I'm concerned about the annual fee increases. I don't use the pool or tennis courts. That's my choice. But I'm interested in what Jane asked about the assessment. I own a townhouse, and I'm a single person living alone, so I pay the same as a family of 2, 3, or more. And some of my friends live in Deepwood or across from Reston Town Center, and they don't pay the Reston annual fee. But I had a question. Are the financial statements available to members? Because I seem to remember a while back there was a survey about offering services or events that are already offered by others in our area. And I'm curious why Reston Association would even consider that when it seems there isn't enough money to pay for what our responsibilities are. And so I'd really be interested in knowing what the total expenses were for the lake house, including the purchase price and the renovation and the annual maintenance compared to the revenue that Reston Association receives for that. So my question basically is, are financial statements available to members?
The answer to that is yes, they are. And so those statements are available to all members. And if you want specific answers, Susan, to any of your other points, I would ask Larry to address those.
So if you send me an email, Susan, it's really simple, larry@reston.org.
Okay.
I will send you the link to where you can find the financials. And they're posted typically in the fiscal committee realm of the website. And I know we've got a temporary website right now. It's a little hard to navigate. So if I send you a link, it'll be a lot easier to get to them. But we have a fiscal committee meeting next week. And there will be updated materials coming out on Friday.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'll send you an email.
Okay, that'd be great.
Thank you.
And then if you have any questions thereafter, certainly give me a call.
Thanks.
Larry, if you'd like, I can paste that link in the chat section for folks.
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, that'd be great.
And Jennifer Juszczyk has just left a chat message about how you can find it on our website, but Larry's going to send you the link, which will be easier.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from our members who are attending? So I see Shelley and Nina and Tammy. Any questions or comments that you would like to make?
Can you see me at all?
I can see your name, but you remain,
I don't have any.
remain a mystery.
Wait a minute. All right, does that help a little bit?
Now we can see you.
So, okay, basically, I listened in here because I thought there were going to be like tens of people attending this meeting. I'm really disappointed that so few of our North Point residents have chimed in here or signed on at all. I'm a real advocate for all the trails, all the pathways. I walk every one of them in North Reston. I know that you guys are super strapped. there are some sort of concerning trails along Wheelie Avenue, like along between Center Harbor and the dog park area that are just covered with there are cracks with weeds all over the place. And I know that you have a maintenance schedule, but that place really needs some whole stretch there between Center Harbor and where the dog park is. That's my only complaint. I love the trails, and I'm really just on to listen.
Thank you, Shelley. Larry, I see him making a note of that, so.
Yeah, that section of path there, I believe, is Fairfax County's from Center Harbor, because it goes past the edge of the school there and goes down past Barron Cameron Park, I believe. If that's
Right.
about. We have a maintenance agreement with Fairfax County for about 1.5 miles of trail, and that's primarily for snow plowing and surface repairs. So the capital repairs are the county's responsibility, but I'm glad you brought that up. So I can, I'll get with my contact at the county and make sure they go out and check it, because it needs to get on a recapping schedule. I mean, we recap pathways virtually every year based on condition, but I'm not sure if the county is quite as rigorous.
Okay, good. Thank you, Larry.
But I will look into that.
We're hanging boughs there, and I mean, it's kind of a mess, so it needs to be looked after.
Okay, we'll check it out.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, concerns? Yes.
I do have one question. Are there any facilities that are under serious consideration of closure or significant, just closure, I guess, would be the question.
Larry, do you want to take that one?
The facility that's getting the most attention right now is Shadowwood Pool down off South Lakes Drive, in part because there are, we'll say, $240,000 or so worth of repairs that need to happen to that pool. And the utilization of that pool is the lowest of all of our 15 pools. And so the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee is going to unleash an information gathering campaign next week that will include a survey. A weekend later, I think the last weekend in September, there are going to be some on-site sort of meet and greets to get people's feedback. There's going to be door hangers and so forth. So the committee is really interested in why, who uses the pool, why don't people use the pool? Is there something that would be of more value to the membership on that site? And just, get answers to questions so that that committee can then, give advice or make recommendations to the board of directors to ultimately have the decision on the disposition of that facility. So there's a lot that's going to be going on in the next 3 weeks with respect to that pool. Hopefully that answers your question.
It did, thank you.
Yeah, Tim, did you want to say something?
I'm good, John. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, that whole analysis of what we should do with our present amenities, our present recreational amenities, is the work being done by PRAC, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, and they're, as I said, they're looking at it. I mean, some of the drivers of this study are the age of the facilities, because the developers built virtually all of our tennis courts and all of our pools and some of the other facilities. They were all built roughly the same time. They are aging out at about the same time. So part of this is driven by age. Part of it is driven by the costs, the immense costs to fix those or to change those to what people really want. We don't want to maintain facilities that people aren't interested using if they would rather have a water splash park instead of a pool, or, we'd like to know that. And then finally, we want to make sure that that we are making facilities equitably available to all the members of our community, both geographically and that if not just the wealthier sections, if you will, of Reston. So there are many considerations that PRAC is taking into consideration as they prepare their recommendations for board consideration. Yes, Susan.
Yeah, if the Shadowwood pool were to be closed, there are some people who use it. Would it be possible to have some sort of shuttle bus that would take people to the next nearest pool if it's closed?
Right now, we're foreclosing no possibilities. We want this driven by genuine member need and interest. So once we determine that, we'll know how to adjust those facilities that need adjustment, whether it's changing them or changing access to them, as you suggest.
I know it's really disappointing there aren't that many people on this call, because so many of the people who are affected by this don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And they don't have an interest in knowing what's going on until something happens. So if there is thought of choosing the Shadowwood pool, maybe when you send out the survey or publicize it, to say, would people be interested in a shuttle bus to this pool, which is the nearest one? But it's really frustrating getting people to participate.
Yeah.
It is indeed.
Yeah, many young families obviously are, completely consumed and overwhelmed indeed by just taking care of their families and their jobs. I understand that, having been through that phase in my life. So that's part of it. But part of it is we need to, it's one of my deep hopes that we will retrieve and enhance and grow the founding spirit, where Robert Simon said toward the end of his life, it's all about community. And if we can retrieve and develop that spirit of community, perhaps we can incrementally increase our participation. That's the hope.
Yeah.
So are all of the communications now through email notices, or are there, like when you're talking about closing a pool, would you set up at one of the grocery stores in the nearby area, asking people to comment as they're coming and going if it affects them? Or is everything just by email and the website?
No, for Shadowwood Pool, we've got, I believe, about 2,500 door hangers that are being produced, and volunteers put those out, and they're going to be bilingual. We are going to have the two events the last week in September, one in the morning, one on, I think, the Saturdays is morning, Sundays is going to be afternoon, to try to meet people's schedules. We also will have, be in the Friday news blast. There's going to be an online survey. So there's going to be several ways that people can provide input, including face-to-face contact with staff and committee volunteers as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Thank you.
And we're beyond merely email. We're trying to intensify and really pinpoint our use of other social media methods. So
I just have to come back to where I started, I think, which was, I wish I knew how to get more people in the community aware of all of the things that are available to them already. Because I can't tell you how evident it is to me as a new community member, how there's I'm a 30-year market researcher. There's an almost perfect correlation between usage and satisfaction of the association. And I'm not saying that everybody, I'm not at all saying that everybody has the same interests as what the association has to offer. But I do know, just on a very small, non-quantitative, non-projectable survey of my own community, there are very few people here that have been here a long time that really know what's available to them. And it's not that we're not trying as a community. There's so much communication. They're just not receiving it, or they're not reading it, or they're not. And it's frustrating to me because we're all paying for it, And I know that their satisfaction will go up. I know I have friends in my neighborhood. I'm like, why don't you go to the adults only swim day? They're like, what's that? I go, well, it's called the fitness day. Oh, is that what fitness day is? I didn't know what that meant. It's like, I'm always telling them about things. They really have no idea. And Susan, I also have friends that have no interest in going to the pool, or have, I totally hear you. So, John, maybe there is in 2026 or whatever, when the referendum comes up, maybe there's a way to expand the usage tax, or whatever. I don't know, to make it more fair. I don't really know the answer, but that's not in the spirit of the community. And I hear you. But I do think the community has so much to offer, and I really am glad we moved here.
Thank you, Jane. I saw my colleague, Bob Petrine. Bob, did you want to make a comment?
I was going to say, although much of the discussion, particularly about pools, has circulated or surrounded Shadowwood Pool, it is only one of the 15 pools that we have. And I would dare say that there are strong proponents for each one of the 15 pools. But Jane, you identified one of the key factors is how do you keep them open, particularly early in the season and then after Labor Day, and whether they can be kept open. And I also recognize Susan's conundrum, where I've been in Reston 45 years, and my usage of the amenities has changed remarkably as my kids have gotten older. In fact, they now have kids. So how people use things, and how, if you will, how they take for granted the amenities. I think it's been very satisfying in general. And Larry pointed out before how the amount of usage of particularly the open areas and the trails have increased in the past 2 years. It is, and they are, because of the extensive nature of them, they are expensive to maintain. People don't think of trails as being very expensive, but if you have to resurface them, or you have to replace a bridge that is washed away, it gets expensive very quickly. I think one of the other challenges in terms of fees, and particularly if we start to use an ad valorem base, basing fees on real estate values, we have many homeowners who are retired that don't have the flexibility that they once had. And so that kind of pushes towards having everybody pay the same, but that doesn't mean that each year it should go up, X number of dollars in order to cover things. So we have to, we're in the process of dealing with a very difficult situation, in that we've got amenities, as Larry and John and Tim have recognized, that are at their end of their useful lives. And if we keep them, they're going to be expensive to maintain. And because of when they came online, they're all very rapidly, one after the other, are in line to be renovated so that they will last another 40 years. So I know I haven't come up with solutions that satisfy everybody's concerns, but I think the board and staff are working very diligently to make sure that you get good value for the money that you that you provide to run all the amenities in Reston as best we can.
Thanks, Bob.
John, oh, go ahead, Susan.
Okay, I have two questions. One specifically is for Jane. Are you on Nextdoor?
I am not, I'm not, I actually don't use social media by choice. I have,
Okay.
I have access to it, but I can give you my contact information if you want to just.
No,
contact
I'm
me.
not a social media person either, but I am on Nextdoor because it's a great resource
It
if
is.
you need anything. But I was going to suggest if you're on Nextdoor, just talk about some of the amenities of Reston and get people involved, make them aware of what's going on.
That's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea.
Because you don't have to have it come into your email and look at everything.
Yeah.
But if
No,
you
no,
post
I hear you.
occasionally-
I'm just very cautious. I used to be on social media. I'm pretty much boycotting everything now, but it just made me nervous.
Yeah,
But,
I'm not a Facebook fan, or I don't.
No,
do
no,
Twitter.
but I hear you, and there are some bona fide, some great places. Yeah, that's a good idea. There's definitely an opportunity. I wish
Sometimes too, there's a neighborhood group that you can join that's very specific to your smaller neighborhood.
we actually have a really good cluster, really well managed, by one of the cluster members. And I do go on Facebook for that. But we're in the Autumnwood cluster and it's pretty tight. And the people, we have parades and picnics.
Yeah, but maybe mentioning a couple of things that you found out about what Reston offers that they might enjoy.
I tell them all the time. My neighborhood,
Oh.
I'm the poster child for amenities in Reston within my neighborhood.
Well,
But
think about
please-
joining Nextdoor and spreading the word wider.
Okay, all right, I'll take a look at it. All right, you talked me into it.
Okay.
Oh, my other question is for the staff. For a couple of years, I qualified for real estate tax relief. But then when the stock market went up, I was past the 340 or whatever thousand it is. But my question is, I did not know at first that because I qualified for real estate tax relief, I also qualified for relief from the Reston Association fee. So I missed out on that the first year. I don't know if there's a way that you can publicize that. I think it's 50% now instead of 100%.
Correct.
It is 50%.
Mhm. But I didn't know about that the first year or two, and so I missed out on that. And when I found out about it, I was like, oh, woohoo, I saved like $700. So maybe if you could just, get the word out. And I know that like even a lot of people aren't aware of the real estate tax relief, because I've told people, including one person who was 72 when I told her she would have qualified from when she was 65. And people don't look at the inserts with their tax bills. They don't read the stuff. They just don't look at stuff. Frustrating.
Thank you, Susan. I see we have a new member joining us, ZR. Welcome. And you don't have to speak, but you're welcome to ask any question or make any comment you want to. Okay. Well, if we have, this has turned out to be a very lively and good conversation. So thank you for that. I think we can begin to wrap up unless there are burning issues that people want to bring up. I would like to say at the end here that it's been my privilege to serve Reston on the board for, I'm in my 5th year now. So I took over the last 2 years of my predecessor's 3-year term and then was reelected. So I will have served at the end of my term five years, and that ends next April. So I'm saying that to say, thank you for the privilege of serving Reston on behalf of the North Point District, and to say that if there's anyone out there who's interested in running for the board for the North Point District, there will be an opportunity. That decision generally has to be made and announced to the Reston Association in January, but I want to give early, not warning. Some would say
Opportunity.
Opportunity. Some would say warning, others would say opportunity. But there is the opportunity to serve in that way. So if you or anyone you know who you think would really be an asset to RA is interested, I wanted to get that word out that I term out. I can't run again. And you can only do 2 terms. And so I want to get the word out so people can start thinking about that. Any other comments, or shall we say goodnight to each other?
I just want to say I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all.
Me too.
And we to meet you all. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming out.
Yeah, and I should bring up the points that we were asked to remind folks of. I believe, Sean, you're going to post the contact information do you have contact information for me and Larry that you can post now? Or if not, I'll just give you. So I'm John Mooney, and you can phone me at my ordinary phone number, 703-477-8460. Or you can email me at jrmooney7@gmail.com. That's the fastest, surest way to get to me. So the next member listening session will take place on Monday, September 13th, again at 6:30, and it will be hosted by the board secretary and Lake Ann Tall Oaks District Director, Aaron Webb. So he will be the one who is hosting that meeting. Any other comments or questions?
John, just one point.
Yes.
The link I shared about management and finance, if they go to that link, they can see contact information for all of our senior leadership team.
Thank you, Sean. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. And I wish you a very good evening. What remains of it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye now.
Good night, everybody.
Glad you all love Reston. Bye now.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.